Om Magina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaye Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamana Petyam Apet Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre titam mayatayo taravo vinidustam sarvabhutam munimaratoshmi Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay shiptascha karma ditarangamadye Kripa maitvam sharanam prapana Vrinde namaste charana ravindam Bhajami radam aravinda netram Smarami radam madhurashmitasyam Vadami radam karuna baradram Tato mamanasti katyena chapi. I first of all offer millions of Dandavat pranams under the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Asto Tarasarashi Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. And the same again millions of times under the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shrimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So, we've reached the 6th verse today in our study of Siksastakam, and we've seen how the gifts of Mahaprabhu are increasing in intensity. He began by, in the first verse, making a summary, giving us from Shraddha to Prem, and very clearly going through the different purification stages of Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, then Anishtita Bhakti, Nishtita Bhakti also, and then was manifesting Shreya Karaiva Chandrika, Ruchi, and then was coming Vidya Vadu Jivanam, this stage of Asakti. And yesterday we discussed at length this jewel of Asakti, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Vam Vishvam Bhavambado, Kripaya Tava Padapankaja, Stita Duli Sadrisham Vachintaya. So we can chant this Siksastakam again. It's very, very helpful for us. Okay? Cheto tapanam marjanam bhavamahadavagnir nirvapranam shreyam karaiva chandrika vitaranam vidya jivanam anandam buddhi vardhanam pratipatam purnamritasvardhanam sarvatmasnam param param padayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam nam namakari bahudar nija sharad shaktis Tatrapita niyamita smarane nakalaha etadrishi tava kripat bhagavan maipi durdaivam idrisham ihajani nanurag Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sunishana amanina manadena kirtanya sadahari nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye Mama Janmani Jamanishware Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoiti Kityoyi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishvam Bhuvam Buddho Kripaya Tava Padapankaja Stita Duli Sudrisham Vishintaya Nayanam Gara Shrudarya Radhanam Gadgara Rudaya Gira Pulake Nichitam Papukada Tava Namagrihane Bhavishyati Yugayitam namishena chakshusam pravisayitam sunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahirme aslisya va padaratam panashto mam adarshanam mamam hatam karotava yata tata va vidatu lampato mat prananastu sa eva napraha. Do you think it will be helpful for us to read together the translation? I think it will be very helpful. Let there be supreme victory for the chanting of the holy name of Sri Krishna, altogether, which cleanses the mirror of the heart and completely extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. This Krishna Sankirtanam diffuses the soothing moon rays of Bhav, white lotus of good fortune for the jivas to bloom. The holy name is the life and soul of transcendental knowledge. Since Vidya... Okay, we got different translations. It continuously increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, enabling one to taste complete nectar at every step. The holy name thoroughly bathes and cools the body, mind and soul. O Bhagavan, your holy name bestows all auspiciousness upon the living entities. Therefore, for the benefit of the jivas, you eternally manifest your innumerable names, such as Ram, Narayan, Krishna, Mukunda, Madhava, Govinda, and Damodar. You have invested those names with all the potencies of their respective forms. Out of causeless mercy, you have not even imposed any restrictions on the chanting and remembrance of such names. Nonetheless, I am so unfortunate, due to committing offenses, that I have no attachment for your holy name, which is so easily accessible and bestows all good fortune. Thinking oneself to be lower than and more worthless than the insignificant grass which is trampled beneath the feet of all, being more tolerant than a tree, accepting no honor, but offering respect to all others according to their respective positions, one should continuously chant the holy name of Sri Hari. O Jagadish, I do not desire wealth, followers such as wife, sons, friends and relatives, nor mundane knowledge expressed in poetic language. My only desire, O Praneshwar, is that birth after birth I may have a hoitiki bhakti unto your lotus feet. O Nandanandan, please be merciful upon me, your eternal servant, falling in the turbulent ocean of material existence as a result of my fruitive actions. Please consider me as a particle of dust affixed to your lotus feet, and accept me forever as your indentured servant. O Prabhu, when will my eyes be filled with a stream of tears? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand erect in ecstasy as I chant your holy name? O Saki, in separation from Govinda, even a moment seems like a millennium. Tears begin to shower from my eyes like rain from the clouds, and this entire world seems void. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maidservant who is attached to the service of his lotus feet, and thus make me his very own. Or let him break my heart by not being present before me. He is a debauchee and can do whatever he likes. Even if he cavorts with other lovers directly in front of me, he is still my prananath. I have no one other than him. Shri Krishna Shri Siksastakam Ki Jai. So today we've reached this 6th verse, and we can see this progression manifesting through. Yesterday we were discussing the beginning of Bhav. This asakti is this final stage of the sadhak before the manifestation of his deep, spontaneous attraction. In ashakti, it's profound attraction. But in Bhav, it seems there's practically no more control over my emotions. I'm running quickly, completely towards Krishna. So asakti is the beginning of this stage of Bhav. So now, in this verse, Mahaprabhu, his greed is increasing in intensity in each verse. And in this verse, it's as if he's experienced being a particle of dust on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And now it seems that's not enough. It seems like he's achieved that goal of asakti. But now his greed has heightened. This is the nature of coming in contact with Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Our greed increases. It's totally opposite to anything material. If we perform some material act, usually when we reach some kind of conclusion, our enthusiasm drops a little bit. And we start this
symptom of pride often comes in. Pride at what I have actually achieved. It's like in the material world, we retire, right? When we've performed our various acts and so on. Oh, now I'm retired, Prabhu. It means, how was the enthusiasm has dwindled. Why? Because pride has come. And this is the antithesis of that. This is a purely spiritual staircase. So with the advent of increased humility, increased enthusiasm will come. With the increased humility, I'm thinking I have nothing. I have no wealth. I have no bhakti. I am just insignificant, like a piece of straw floating in the street. So this is a phenomenon that actually in this material consideration, we reach a limit because pride chops us. Pride cuts us. You know, you see wealthy people in the world, they're living in their big houses and retired completely, enjoying their so-called tamagun, or their retired place of consciousness. And usually that's when they grow very old very quickly, because their body stops functioning properly. But all negative things can manifest then. But we see the opposite. As a devotee progresses, his humility must be increasing. Because actually we were saying yesterday, it seems as we come closer to Krishna, that actually we're further away. It seems like the mountain gets, as we understand his sweet divine nature and his glories, it seems, my God, I can never enter this world of Goloka Vrindavan. I can never enter that mood of the Braja Ramanis. It's so far away. At the beginning, when you're a first-year-old bhakta, you think, oh yes, tomorrow I'll get there, no problem. Yes, yes, easy. But as you get older and older, you start to realize actually how transcendental that realm is. And then, as the realization of the beauty and height of that world increases, our natural humility will begin to manifest. So this is the imbibing quality throughout all of these verses. Now, he's become stuck like a piece of dust to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And he's experiencing so much sweetness and speciality. But now it's not sufficient. Now he wants more. When will my eyes be filled with tears? When will my voice choke up? He's saying like this. When will these anubhavas, these are called anubhavas, these are the external symptoms of bhav. The difference between anubhavas and sattvika bhavas is that in these anubhavas that manifest, there is some intelligence, there is some thought. Oh, now I will sing. Oh, now I'm going to roll on the ground. Oh, now tears are coming from my eyes. But in the higher stage than that, in the sattvika bhavas, there's no consciousness of actually what we're doing. It's completely, utterly spontaneous. The anubhavas are almost spontaneous, but not quite. You actually know still something what you're doing. Perhaps you're aware that you're acting like a madman. But when these sattvika bhavas manifest, you have no idea of the rest of the material world at all. You're utterly absorbed in the object of our devotion. So this is tomorrow's verse. This sattvika bhavas will be manifested. But in this verse today, bhav itself is being demonstrated by Mahaprabhu with great longing, this utkanta, this lalasamayi or lobamayi, this longing. When will my eyes be decorated with tears? When will my voice choke up? When will my hairs stand on end at the recitation of your name? This is like when we sing Gauranga Bolite, Habe. It's saying, oh, when will that translation for this verse, when will my voice choke up? It's saying there at the beginning, this is Narottam Das. Narottam Das's speciality is his mood of lalasamayi, his mood of longing. In practically all of Narottam's writings, there's this strong, Yes, when will this is Anubhav. This is an exhibition of Anubhav, Pulaka. This is Anubhav. So, Narottam is demonstrating like this. So, I thought I would read a little bit of the commentary here, because it encapsulates in a nutshell just exactly where we are. Gurudev describes it very beautifully. Actually, this is Bhaktivedanta Thakur. No, in the Siksastakam. In the Siksastakam, Bhaktivedanta Thakur is saying, he's giving a progression again. Again, it's a constantly refreshing the progression, constantly refreshing the staircase, constantly re-examining the path, constantly knowing where we're going, familiarity with the steps. So after some time we become very familiar with these steps that we're going on, and we also become very familiar on where we're going. How can you possibly be enthusiastic if we don't clearly know what is the goal? If we don't clearly know what is our objective, how is it possible to go vigorously on this path? We will be just going slowly. So again, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he reiterates and he quotes Ado Shraddha tata sadhu sangha tata bhajana kriya tata nartana vritti syat tato nishta ruchi tata ashaktis ta bhavas tad preman budyachate. That this praying is the culmination of all of these stages. So this is the path that this most munificent personality, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is gifting to us. This is his gift. We've described many times that his reason for Advent was to taste, just as he's dancing, he's tasting that prem with one hand, and he's giving this rag marg, prem ras niryase karite ashwadan, rag marg bhakti loke karite prachan. He's tasting this sweetness, but he's simultaneously giving. So this is his demonstration. Within this structure of the Siksastakam, Mahaprabhu himself is fulfilling his three most cherished desires. And at this point, this third desire, which is the highest desire, it's the pinnacle of desires. The first desire to understand the Mahima, the glories of Radha. And the second, to realize the sweet qualities, the astonishing qualities in Krishna that only Radha perceives. But this third desire, who can say the third desire? You can say? Not, you don't have to say the Sanskrit, but the Sanskrit's good.
To relish the happiness that she Radhika perceives from the sweetness of Krishna's love.
Perfect. It's not easy to remember because it's not in material calculation, this third desire. Kusum Peter knows these so well. I've been through so many times in so many different parts of the world, these desires, but I've never had a chance to be through them in Vrindavan. Yes, what she's saying, Sokyam, Kasyam, Mad, Anubhavata are the two words. The happiness that Radha experienced is described as 10 million times greater than Krishna. And remember, I told you that Krishna only reaches to this stage of Atiruddha. He doesn't taste this Mohan, Modan, Madan. He doesn't taste these three higher stages. He can't. Because those three higher stages are a result of tasting his own sweetness. So how is it conceivably possible for him to taste those higher stages? It's not. It's him that ignites that taste, that is that taste. So it's not possible. But only if he takes that Bhavan Kanti from Sri Radha. And what was Krishna's greed himself to take that bhav? Krishna's own rag, Krishna's own greed, his own enthusiasm. We see as a little child in Gokul, his enthusiasm to steal all the gopis' butter. The gopis were churning butter. They were actually churning it in the hopes and prayers that darling Krishna would come and take and taste their butter. Krishna had to facilitate. His greed was unlimited for their anurag, for that sweetness of the gopis. So he would go and take that butter. Actually, they would become so joyful, but for Leela, they would chastise him and so on. So many beautiful Leelas. But Krishna demonstrates his own rag, his own enthusiasm. He demonstrates even more his enthusiasm to meet with Sri Radha. Sometimes Krishna, he stands all night in the courtyard of Jyotila trying to entice Sri Radha, but he can't because Jyotila's suddenly got wind and she thinks that maybe Krishna's in the courtyard. They're hearing this beautiful cuckoo, and Jyotila's thinking, I never heard a cuckoo as sweet as this. And the gopis, they know immediately, oh, this is Krishna calling from the tree in the courtyard. But Jyotila, she also thinks, oh, something's going on here. And she's standing there with a stick. Krishna has to stay there all night. Krishna's exhibition of his own greed is unbelievable. His own greed to be with Sri Radha. This greed, this is the quality of Raganuga Bhakti. You must at least become familiar with this principal verse of Rupa Goswami. Krishna Bhakti Rasabhavita Mati Kriyatam Yatita Labhyate Tatra Lolyam Api Mulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Sukritiyana Labhyate. These verses I'm quoting are all very, very basic verses that we should have in our sloka book and each day regularly be refreshing. You don't need to know lots and lots and lots of verses if you're not that inclined. If you know a few key verses properly and know how those verses, the purport of those verses, can carry us further into Vrindavan, into Leela. So it's very important. I described yesterday, this verse was the verse that Rai Ramananda quoted to Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu became satisfied when he heard this verse. He no longer said, oh, go higher, go higher. Then he started examining all of what Ramananda Rai was actually saying. So this greed, now again we see this transcendental greed so strongly exhibited by Mahaprabhu. When will these tears? I don't just want to be a speck of dust. Okay, that was my prayer 2 days ago. Now my prayer has become thicker. It's become deeper. I want tears to be springing from my eyes. I want my hairs to be standing on end. I want my voice to be choked up. I want to experience this rising bhav of my swarup manifesting in its attraction to Radha and Krishna. This is the purport, principally, of this verse that we're looking at today. So there is still more beautiful explanations here. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, upon the attainment of bhav, bhakti attains to its pure identity, which is now unbreakable. When we reach the stage of bhav, he's describing it as unbreakable. It seems to be unbreakable, but there are examples in scripture of it breaking that I gave yesterday. Bharat Maharaj. Gurudev describes he was just approaching the stage of bhav, actually, because from this stage of bhav, the heart has melted so significantly. There's another very, very beautiful key verse that we should be familiar with. Shuddha Shatva, Vishesh Atma, Prem Suryavams Samyabak, Ruchi Bis Chita Mrishnu Shud Bhav Uchyate. This is saying that this Shuddha Sattva Vishesh Atma, this bhav, it's not from this world. Ultimately, this bhav is a kiran. It's a ray of sun of prem. That's actually what this bhav is. It's nothing to do with this world. It's a totally transcendental emotion. So Rupa Goswami has defined it like this, that this bhav is like a ray of the sun of prem. Prem Surya Vamps. Anks means part, a part. So this Prem Surya Anks, a part of the sun of Prem. And then so many beautiful tastes will manifest with this bhav experience. And they will soften this hard heart. Our heart by nature is soft. The bhav is our nature, but it has become hard in association with matter. What does it mean, association with matter? It means I'm trying to enjoy matter. I'm connecting with matter. Right now we can be in the material situation, but not associating with matter. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a very clear, beautiful analogy in the first chapter of Jaiva Dharma. He talks about how if you have an iceberg in Antarctica, If the iceberg had consciousness, actually water does have consciousness. It's been proven by one Japanese scientist very beautifully. He would speak to crystals of water, a sound and the water in the crystals would form different patterns. If he said war, to the crystal it would make a very harsh type of mandala pattern. If he said flower, it would start to look very beautiful. If he said love, it would look even more beautiful. So water responds. Water is a living entity. Water actually is one of the witnesses to the jiva's activities also. It's described in Bhagavatam. So in Bhagavatam we know all these things already, but the material scientist, he sometimes discovers them, he thinks. But they've already been told in the scripture. So this block of ice, if it's thinking, what is my nature? What is my swadharma? The block of ice, that iceberg, will probably think, I'm very hard. That is my nature. My nature is hard. But actually, if a warm current comes and melts that block of ice and take it back to its real nature, then it becomes liquid. So this liquidity is its real swadharma, not the harsh or the hardness of the ice. Similarly, when the warm current of Gurudev's mercy floods into our hearts, when we allow it to enter, I think somebody was saying yesterday how Gurudev is always giving his mercy, but how are we able to receive his mercy? What adhikar have we developed to receive that mercy? Now during our practice we're trying to develop the adhikar to receive that warm current. When that warm current comes, it will melt this misconception that I am the material body. And again, I will remember my real spiritual nature, my swadharma. Swa means own dharma, my own eternal situation. So this is a wonderful analogy. We are like this, we're entrapped. And why has that ice become hard? Because of the environment. It's in Antarctica, it's freezing cold. So it's become hard, stone-like. We are in the material world. We have taken on that same quality of hardness. Our hearts have become hard, but by the dedicated pursuit of our sadhana bhajan, Krishna's heart will melt himself more towards us. We described yesterday that it's only Supersoul who hears our prayers up to the stage of ruchi. But in the stage of asakti, then Krishna himself directly is hearing our prayers. And then what sort of warm current can't Krishna supply to melt the hardness of this material misconception that I'm the body? So we go through all these different stages trying to realize this one point of our own swarup, our own real spiritual nature. We are spirit and we happen to have a body. The materialist thinks, oh, I am the body and I happen to have a soul somewhere around. But they're actually thinking that they are the body, primarily. I mean, the most important thing in life is my body and facilitating my bodily needs. This is the materialist. This is material consciousness. Don't think when we're talking about materialists, we're talking about someone who's just working 9 to 5 in some sort of place. We're all materialists to some degree, greater or lesser degrees. How much attention are we giving to our bodily necessities, and how much have we put this sadhana bhajan on the front burner of our lives? How much are we putting that always in the front? We're always putting our seva in the front. Or am I being distracted and putting other considerations there instead? So we need to understand this deeply, that I'm in an illusioned condition about my identity. This identity we spoke about yesterday. Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram. This is my identity, Kinkaram. I am this servant of Sri Krishna. This is my spiritual, I am manifested ultimately from Swarup Shakti, ultimately from Sri Radha. I am called Vibhinamsa Tattva. Krishna, Angsa, it's A-M with a dot on it, Angsa. you pronounce it. It means the original one. That's Krishna. Krishna is the Anksa, or the Anksi. The Anksi. And then from Krishna directly are manifesting his own potencies. They are called Sva Anksa. Swa means own parts. Those own parts are coming directly from Krishna. So Krishna is the Anksi, and then Baladev, Matsya, Korma, Varaha, Nrsimha, Buddha, Kalki. These avatars are coming directly from Krishna. They are his swabsa, own parts. We are coming from those expansions, from Krishna. So if Krishna is here, then he has his own expansions, and we come from those expansions. We are separated parts. We're not coming directly from the body of Krishna at all. We're coming from his parts. So we are called separated parts. So the Sanskrit for that is vibhinamsa. Vibhin means separated. We are separated parts of Krishna, not directly coming from his body. And our function, the function that has been bestowed upon us, we were manifested for Krishna's pleasure, for his enjoyment. So our nature, our very essence, is to bring pleasure to the Lord. That's our nature, that is our swadam. Just like the water, its essence is liquidity, but it's become hard like an iceberg due to the environment. Similarly, my consciousness and heart has become hard due to this material environment. It needs to be melted. The only way it can be melted is by transcendental potency. That transcendental potency is Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. This is what is flowing throughout this Siksastakam. This is the process to achieve these higher stages of transcendental relationship with Sri Radha and Krishna, or to again realize what is my real nature. It doesn't have to be so much hard work. It's only hard work when we're clearing the obstacles. Once we take this resolute understanding of my identity with great shraddha, paramartik shraddha, this highest type of shraddha, paramartik shraddha, faith in the highest reality. Once this faith starts becoming very, very strong, then I become assured internally of my identity as a servant of Krishna. And then I begin to put some bhav into my activities. There is a real mood of seva in everything that I do. Even if I'm cutting vegetables, cleaning a floor, whatever I do. I remember the beautiful example of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada when he showed the devotees in Berry Place. There's a description of it, how to wash a floor. Just a simple act of washing a floor. You know, he spread the cloth out and carefully did it very beautifully, you know, with full heart and affection to clean Krishna's temple. This is with bhav. He's doing all his activities with bhav. Our practice of our sadhana, if it's not even focused on acquiring that mood, it's not even really sadhana. So I gave the beautiful example of the fire yajna, that we chant all the mantras, we have the mango, etc., we have so much facility, the kund, etc. But if we're not thinking that I'm going to light the fire, what is the value of our sadhana? Our sadhana must be focused on bhav bhakti. And we're understanding today that bhav bhakti is simply the ray of the sun of prema. So yesterday we were at the stage of asakti, and then just a little bit away from bhav. But my nature is no longer satisfied with that stage of asakti. Actually, even more greed has arisen. Now, Mahaprabhu is calling out in great eagerness, "Oh, when will my eyes shower tears? When will my hairs stand on end? When will my voice choke up?" In great enthusiasm and eagerness, he's calling like this. Then the next verse is even more enthusiastic, and even more enthusiastic again. So we see this progression principally from the fifth verse of this Siksastakam, from Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram. This is when we start to cross over the boundary of consciousness into transcendental reality. This is when we're actually approaching the highest conclusions. Prior to that, we are dealing with various obstacles and so on. The anartanivriti, this labh, puj, pratishta, etc. We're clearing all this. But now at this stage, Mahaprabhu is very enthusiastically offering our focus to have this kind of a prayer. When will my voice choke up? When will the hairs of my body stand on end, etc.? So this is the stage of bhav. I was describing yesterday, I said I wanted to take 2 days to describe this manifestation of bhav because we need to hear it repeatedly to actually really appreciate it. I described yesterday, with the help of that map, the different shaktis or energies of Krishna through Sri Radha manifesting from the Swarup Shakti that are arranging everything in this world, this Sat Chit Ananda. It's described that Sri Guru, he is carrying this Chit Shakti or Sangvit Shakti from the transcendental realm in his heart. He's also carrying, of course, the Hladini Shakti in his heart. This is why in our conversation yesterday about the necessity of having the living Guru in front of us makes so much sense, that without that living presence to bestow that Sangvit Shakti and that Hladini directly into the heart of the jiva, how can you possibly have that? You don't get it from a book. You don't even get it from association. You don't get it from previous acharyas. You get so much sukriti, as I've described, which will qualify us to come into the presence of that Uttam Bhagavat. That's what all our practices are about. If we've had the fortune, for example, if you just met Gurudev a few months ago, or 12 months ago, or a year ago, you had a very short amount of association. It's absolutely assured 1,000,000% that in your previous birth you did so much sadhan bhajan to deserve that connection in this birth. Don't be lamenting, oh, I didn't spend very much time with Gurudev. In previous birth, who knows what Uttam Bhagavat you probably associated with. So don't be disheartened by that. Understand that everything is in progress. Everything is perfectly, more than perfectly arranged for our reaching the conclusion of this bhakti. Everything in our life. We read that beautiful prayer yesterday. Tattenu kampam susamikshmana bunjana ev atma kritam vipukam hridvag vipubam vadanam namaste jivetaya mukti vadesa dayabak. This is saying that I'm accepting all my situation as the mercy of the Lord. I'm not asking for something else. I'm accepting whatever is my lot. I gave the example of Ramji. Whatever is our lot, we accept. Whatever is our situation, good mind, bad mind, old body, young body, whatever. I accept as the Lord's mercy.
You say Sri Guru brings the Chit Shakti or Sangvit Shakti here. Could you say also?
He has this transcendental knowledge, which is called Sangvit or Chit, within his heart. He has the ability, because he's a Ragatmika Bhakta, to infuse it into the hearts of the jivas. It seems, it's described in Jivadhamma, that knowledge first comes into the mental faculty. And when we start to understand, then we have profound realization of these truths. But that truth actually is already in the heart of the jiva. It's already there. There's a very simple analogy to understand it. That fire, it's already present in the wood. The element fire is already there, dormantly. It's like, for example, if you have a very distant relationship with Guru, and if the fire is over here and the wood is here, the wood won't catch on fire. The wood has to be in close proximity with the fire to be ignited. Similarly, our relationship with Guru has to be very intimate and thick to be ignited. There's an equation for it. And in that igniting, then this transcendental knowledge starts to flower like a lotus within the consciousness. Shreya Karaiva Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidya Vadu Jivanam. This transcendental knowledge, Vidya Vadu Jivanam, it becomes manifested in the consciousness first, in the mind, in the mental faculty, and then it seems to proceed to the heart. But actually it's already in the heart. I'm saying repeatedly this one verse, Nitya Siddhyasya, Bhavasya, Prakritam Hriti Satyate, that this is saying that this Nitya Siddhi, this perfected, eternally perfected Bhav, Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya, is like potential within the heart. Prakritam, Hriti means heart. Prakritam iti Sadyate, it's already in the heart. We already have that perfected condition. Just like within the ice, there is the quality of liquidity, but it has become densely covered by association with a cold environment. So we have become densely covered by this material environment, but understand how that covering is able to be there. It's there because I want it to be there. It's there because of my desire. I like it. I like my ice cream. I like my sweets. I like my material tastes. I'm used to them. It's bad habits. There's nothing wrong with ice cream, by the way. There's nothing wrong with sweets either, unless you eat too many. Sarah knows. But understand that this is already there. Now, yesterday we discussed an interesting point we brought up about the conception of my conceived of spiritual body. It would seem that there was a doubt that that essential nature of my soul could change at some point. But according to Shastra, it never ever does. So I'm not even going to entertain in these classes that conception. I've decided it just gets too much over the edge. A Mahabhagavat can explain something more, but according to Shastra, and the divine, beautiful example that Gurudev has given a number of times, took place in one wonderful assembly in Navadvip, when a devotee was asking Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, what is the nature of the soul? He was asking, does it actually change at all? Is there transformation in the soul? And Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he answered so beautifully. He said that if you take a certain seed of like a mango tree, and then you take a seed of a jackfruit tree, then you take a seed of an apple tree, and you plant those three different seeds in the same ground, right beside the same river, and you have the same gardener watering them, and you have the same sun on them, and they're in the same soil, will they all be the same? Never. One has the inherent nature of a mango tree, one has the inherent nature of a jackfruit tree, and the other is an apple tree. They're different. In other words, we are all very different. And there's an example of Anupam, the brother of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Rupa and Sanatan were so enthusiastic to bring pleasure to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and accepted him fully as their Ishadev. Anupam was so brilliant also, one of the three brothers, but his nishta, his focus was on Lord Ram. And even though he had all of this association, the most powerful association of Rupa and Sanatan, it could not change his inherent nature. In other words, the inherent nature, the Sthayi Bhav, is fixed. It is fixed. It does not change. But what I think can happen is that it can be influenced. And I was thinking of a seed of a tree. If you take the seed of a mango tree and you plant it in a very nice, well-watered field, it'll grow in a very beautiful way. If you take that same seed and you plant it on the side of a mountain, it will manifest differently to how it would manifest in a well-cultivated field. So I'm understanding that this conceived of spiritual body is somewhat influenced by our practice. If our practice is under the guidance of a Mahabhagavat in Vrindavan, if it's carrying us very quickly towards that conclusion of understanding my real identity, then that tree can grow very beautifully. But if it's in another set of circumstances and we're not getting the same amount of potency, then perhaps that tree will manifest, but not to the same degree as it would otherwise. This is what I was thinking this morning about that. But in principle, the tattva and siddhanta is that the sthayi bhav, sthayi means fixed. Become familiar with these words. Permanent, permanent. The permanent bhav, the permanent nature of the individual. Gurudev has explained a number of times that if in this life you become attracted to the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and you take up this process guided by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is practically 100% that you are in Madhurya Bhav. Practically 100%. If you are sitting in an assembly and you are hearing about Sri Radha and Krishna and the gopis in Vrindavan, then that means you have some attraction naturally to hear those topics. I've seen people come into the company of Srila Gurudev and they've heard one time Gurudev speaking and they've gone away and never ever come back. So therefore perhaps we can understand that person's inclination wasn't towards that intense Madhurya Bhav, although the Uttam Bhagavat can fulfill anybody's bhav. If somebody comes to Srila Gurudev and their bhav is in Sakya Bhav, just like Brajanath in Jaivadama, his mood was Sakya Bhav. And Babaji could facilitate that very easily, because within Madhurya reside all the other 4 bhavs, principal bhavs, are there automatically within Madhurya. Within Madhurya is Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya. All of those are there. So we need to...
Isn't there an example of a Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it was Vallabhacharya, coming to Mahaprabhu and he was worshipping Lakshmi Narayan and then Mahaprabhu preached to him.
Venkatabhata in South India, the 3 brothers, yes, in Sri Rangam. She's giving the example there.
He took up the mood of Radha Krishna after hearing.
Yes, because that individual, Venkatabhata, and his brother is Prabodhananda Saraswati. Who is Prabodhananda Saraswati in Krishna Lila? That is none other than Tungavidya Saki. And then their son was Gopal Bhatta. This was their son who served directly Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu could perceive that their sthayi bhav was of a higher place than they were actually practicing. Due to the influence of Sri Rangam, they were serving Lakshmi Devi or Sri Rangam, Ranganath. But by Mahaprabhu's mercy, their real nature became manifest. But in contrast to that, there's another example of Murari Gupta, who was so fixed on Lord Ram, and he tried one whole night to chant Hare Krishna and to put his mind on Radha and Krishna. And in the morning he came weeping and weeping in front of Mahaprabhu. I cannot do it. I cannot pull my heart away from Sri Ram. I will throw myself in fire. I cannot do what you're asking. So this is an example of his tremendous... Even Mahaprabhu could not influence that. He didn't want to influence. He wanted to show the world the strength of his nishta to Sri Ram. But in the case of Venkatabhata that you've mentioned, that was different. His sthayi bhav was different. that Sthai Bhav had not manifested to the same degree. This is my understanding. You understand? And like with Anupam also. Anupam couldn't shift. Even he had such association. So this is confirming. These are the examples that Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj gave when he was giving this example of the seeds. The same water, same air, same gardener, same sun, same soil, but each tree will grow in its own light, in its own form. The Sthai Bhav is fixed. Okay. So, we should understand how this Bhav can manifest. It will only manifest by being ignited by that person who already has Shuddha Bhakti, which is the pure devotee. He can manifest that within us. We must have that connection. We already have it in potential, but it won't manifest without the association of the pure devotee. This we have to know so deeply. Gurudev said so many times, practically every day of his life, Guru Nishta is the backbone of our devotion. Without this strong Guru Nishta, this, you can say, equation of love, this, what do you call it? Exchange of love. It's reciprocal. It has to be between me. It has to come. The Bhav is in my heart. How is that going to rise and manifest? It's going to rise in my relationship with someone else who has that also. That's how it will manifest. That's how these moods will manifest. It's all relationship. Everything is relationship from top to bottom. We become happy in this world when our relationships are harmonious. When all around us we're feeling harmony with those in our company. We're satisfied. What to speak when we put that into the transcendental realm? The principal joy is in our relationships, and the highest relationship is, of course, between Sri Radha and Krishna. And for us to serve that relationship, that highest divine relationship, will bring the highest joy and exhibit the highest stage of Bhav. So we must, our bhajan, our sadhana, our practice must be carefully focused on these truths. Regularly read this Siksastakam, or regularly check in your mind these different stages. See the necklace of stages flowing. It must be going towards Bhav Bhakti. Otherwise, what is our sadhana? If it's not going towards Bhav Bhakti, then it's going towards moksha, mukti, liberation, something like this. It's going in another direction. You can commit spiritual suicide. You can slow the growth or manifestation of your nature, your natural mood, right down by incorrect association. You can become influenced. Just yesterday I heard of one devotee in New Zealand. He was just initiated a few years ago, and they wrote and told me, oh, he had this other association. They were speaking badly about Gurudev. Now he's actually condemning Gurudev, and he's gone into another whole place. I mean, the jiva is weak. Sadhu Sangha is the principal catalyst for our progress. We must seek it wherever it is. And we must understand the differences between Sadhu Sangha. If someone is talking about Vaikuntha Prem, if you go to the Ramanujas, you can learn so many wonderful things about how to behave in life, how to perform correct etiquette and so on. But you'll never learn about the sweetness of the relationship between Radha and Krishna. You'll never learn about Raganuga Bhakti. That's not described in that particular sampradaya. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he once said that if you have as many as 4 or 5 or even 3 or 4 associates who are clearly on the same path, that's all you actually need. You don't have to have a whole temple filled with people following the same path necessarily. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 friends who you feel trust and confidence in, this, what is it, Snigdha, Sneha? Svajatya, Snigdha, Ashraya. Yes, this Svajatya, Swa means own, Jatya, own group, Svajatya. Then Snigdha, this affection, Sneha, this affection. Then Ashraya, you're always looking for that person who you will consider is more advanced than you. That is the sort of company we want to keep. This sort of company, our bhajan can flourish. It's not that we need a whole packed temple full of everybody jumping up and down and saying we're all the same. We're not all the same. It doesn't help to erode your individuality. You should appreciate fully your own unique individuality. Krishna does. Krishna wants to taste it. In the early stages, it doesn't really show up. But in later stages, your uniqueness really begins to blossom. And it's so beautiful, our own uniqueness. We will take happiness in our own uniqueness. So we must be cautious about sometimes just falling in line like a robot with different, groups of people and just following along mindlessly. We have to know every single thing we're doing. On these retreats I do, these japa retreats, I try to encourage everyone to ask questions all the time about every single thing we do. Why do we circumambulate Tulsi? Why do we go around the deity? Why do we sing these prayers? What's this prayer about? Why are we getting up early in the morning? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Every single thing should be explained. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're like a robot. You can be like a robot for 1 or 2 years, it's okay, if you're in the right association. But after some time, your intelligence should wake up and you should inquire, well, why am I doing this? Why is he saying do this? That person who's maybe asking you to do something may not be correct. His vision may not be perfect. You have to inquire. We have to find those that we trust. This is very important. And engender respect amongst each other. This is paramount. So these stages of Bhav is the subject of this verse today. And in particular, anubhava. So I just want to read, because I don't remember them all, from here again. This book chalks out rasa tattva. By knowing rasa tattva, it doesn't mean you know what is rasa at all. But it gives you a chance to contemplate these topics. It fulfills, a desire to come into these topics. Without looking at these topics, without ever picking this up, how will we... I can remember when I was younger, we used to have Nectar of Devotion, and I can remember reading it just straight through, but not understanding so much of it. And it always seemed so far away. But then the more I began to read it, the more close it became, because my nature actually could understand it, because it's the nature of the jiva. This is our nature here. So I've already described the differences between anubhava and sattvika bhava. Who remembers? I said at the beginning of the class. Does anybody remember? Who's listening? Very good. Sattvika bhavas are spontaneous, totally spontaneous. You cannot check them. You have no control over them whatsoever. They just erupt in the heart and express themselves in bodily activities. The anubhavas, there is still a glimmer of intelligence behind them when you actually exhibit them. It's not quite as full-blown as the sattvika bhavas. So in the anubhavs, there are 2, 4, 6, 13. There are 13 anubhavs, and it's described that 2, 4, 6, 8 involve hasty actions, it's described. Quick actions. So they are dancing, rolling on the ground, loud crying, writhing of the body, roaring. We would hear Advaita would roar. This is showing his anubhav. Loud laughter, staggering about, and a fit of hiccups. These are 8 stages of anubhav that are exhibited in a very hasty manner, or quick manner, abrupt manner, these anubhavs. And then there are 5 that display apathy to the material world, to the social world. They are singing. You're just singing, and it doesn't matter who likes or who doesn't like. Yawning, breathing heavily, disregard for public image, and salivating. Saliva's coming out of the mouth. These are symptoms of ecstasy, external symptoms of ecstasy. And there's something of some conscious intention of doing these activities. When you dance, you're consciously dancing, etc. So these are anubhavs. And then sattvika bhavs, we can discuss more in detail tomorrow with that particular verse that pertains to it. But they are coming completely from a spontaneous nature. They just erupt out of the heart. You can't check them. These were the remarkable symptoms that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was displaying that no one had ever seen. The sort of Asta Sattvika Bhavs. Asta means 8. So these 8 Sattvika Bhavs are from the highest realm. So this verse is leading us into the final conclusions of our sadhana bhajan, which is the intensity of our relationship with Sri Radha and Krishna in an utterly selfless way. Because we see at the conclusion, now we have to start looking to the conclusion. Now we've come to the stage of bhav. We have to see what is the conclusion. Aslisya va padharatam panashto mam. It's that whether you embrace me or throw me away or enjoy with other lovers even in front of me, you will never stop being my prananath. This intense love, attraction for the object of our rati, the object of our affection, can never be compromised under any circumstances. This is prem, full-blown prem. So this is where we're going to, and we're seeing this bhav is a stage. It's the ray of sun, the kiran, the sun of prem, which is about to manifest. So we see through these 8 verses what a wonderful necklace of steps that carefully Mahaprabhu has given us. And it's packed with so many things that, of course, I'm not saying. I'm saying just a fraction of actually all of the truths. That I'm just trying to build for you a skeleton, so to speak, or a framework where we can enter truly each of these verses by our own contemplation, by our own chanting, because this is when the real realization will be tasted, when I am experiencing it myself. It doesn't matter ever what other people are thinking or saying. There's a paragraph at the end of this chapter describing how imitation is so unfortunate. If someone chooses to imitate these anubhavs, how unfortunate. It's completely the antithesis of the path that we're going. If someone is trying to show some exhibition of tears, etc., at hearing the words and so on, this is so tragic, in fact. They're cheating themselves so blatantly. There's the pastime of Haridas Thakur. He was chanting loudly and some people were around him, and suddenly he heard the sound of a flute there was a flute player close. He went into the most ecstatic moods, rolling on the ground, etc. He heard that flute just touched his heart completely. He thought, oh, this is Krishna. And then he left. And then there was a snake charmer there. And he thought, oh, they all gave him so much honor when he displayed all these symptoms. Am I saying something wrong? Huh? Oh, the snake charmer was playing the... Yeah, even the snake charmer. So the snake charmer was playing to charm the snake, and Haridas Thakur became utterly charmed by that sound of the snake charmer's flute, what he was playing, that Shanai. And then all the Brahmins gave Haridas Thakur such respect and honor to see his display of anubhavas manifesting. And then another person in the crowd thought, oh, I'll become famous too, just like Haridas, they'll honor me as well. So he began imitating Haridas. But the snake charmer, he knew that this was an imitation, and the other people could sense it, and they began to beat this man, chased him away like that. So sometimes we see, I've even seen it down here at Radha Damodar, people come from different places and they, want to display some high symptoms of devotion, thinking that they're going to get respect of the public. I don't know what they're going to do with that respect. Maybe they're going to get some money from it or something. It's just going to inflame the false ego. What's the value of that? If our misconception of our material identity becomes reinforced and stronger, how tragic is that? It's the last thing we want to go for. We want to, keep everything totally realistic. We have to be sometimes alone. We're in a group and we have these different groups, our sanghas and so on, but really, it's very valuable to spend time, at least in the morning hours, at least for 3 or 4 hours in the morning and perhaps in the evening, but to develop like a sanctuary in the heart where it's between you and Srila Gurudev and our Ishtadevs. Some place where I'm there. This is bhajan, where I'm meditating on that spiritual reality. Because as soon as we start to interact, immediately the false ego will become moved in some way or other. And this is good because we have to see how the false ego needs purifying. Krishna will put us in all sorts of positions and situations to purify that false ego. Particularly Srila Gurudev. If you're sitting in front of Gurudev and he thinks your false ego is too high, he'll tell you to stand up and speak on some subject that he knows you have no idea of. And you'll stumble and make yourself look like such a fool. And at other times, if your confidence is down and he thinks that you need to be infused with more confidence, he'll tell you to stand up and speak on something he knows you know very, very well. And everyone will clap and will start to feel happy again. So Gurudev was like the master magician. He would just move us around and, push us into different, sometimes really, really embarrassing situations, in front of thousands of people. I can remember one time even our dear secretary, Brajanath, Madhav Maharaj had to leave the assembly in Govardhan during one prikrama. And he gave the tablets to Brajanath to give to Gurudev on the stage, how Madhav Maharaj used to give many times the tablets, right publicly in front of thousands of people. So after Madhav Maharaj had left, then it came time for the tablet, and Brajanath was standing beside the Vyasasan offering Gurudev the tablet, and Gurudev just sat there and said, no, not taking it. And he sat there for about 3 or 4 minutes, perhaps 5 minutes even. Brajanath was trying to give and he was saying no. Brajanath started sweating. Everyone watching, this intimate servant of Gurudev just standing there looking foolish, I mean, how purifying, how kind, how much mercy. The devotee sees it as total mercy. Sometimes it pinches. Pinches what? Pinches the false ego. We need our false egos pinching regularly. This is the tragedy when Gurudev walks out of our lives. Who will pinch us? Oh, I don't care for that one, I don't care for that one. Our respect perhaps dwindles for various senior individuals. They're not like Gurudev, they're not doing it like Gurudev was. I won't honor them as much. Therefore we don't get the pinches. We don't get the purification of the false ego. That purification of the false ego can really come when we're feeling honor for someone and someone is chastising us sometime or something like that and purifying us in all different ways. How will we get purified? So these are the benefits of being in a sangha, being in a group. It's described like rough stones in a bag. If you juggle them up and down, they wear the rough edges away. You know, our false egos become a little purified. But simultaneously, I'm saying that we should still have this internal growth, which has nothing to do with anybody else really at all. During our nam can carry us into the sweetest realm of mantra meditation, mantra upasana, or this swarasika upasana. We can go into these areas of meditating on Krishna's pastimes very beautifully. And when we come into the association of each other, how to give this association, not just take. In this world there are givers and takers. We should always try to give, distribute whatever wealth we have, because then it increases. That's its nature. It multiplies. If we become miserly with these gifts, they will just go rotten within us. We must somehow, I told you that story yesterday about that first time I went to England after a long time. And with no real intention of speaking about Krishna, but Krishna just arranged that circumstance so simply. So if you just have the desire to share these truths that you're hearing, automatically Krishna will arrange himself a wonderful situation for you to do like that. Prabhupada used to call preaching the belching of our bhajan. We chant so much and then we belch it out to other people, and then Krishna becomes very satisfied at our dedication that we also are trying to help the jivas. This is the intention of Krishna himself sending his parikas, sending Sri Radha's servants to this world, is to help the jiva. That Krishna, in his kastuba mani that he swings on his neck, carries the jiva, is embraced within that kastuba mani that he has on his neck. That's what's inside the kastuba mani, is the jiva. That's how much he loves us. We have no idea of his attraction for us. He loves us so much. He so much wants to see us come home, come back to him in our real identity. He's lamenting that we have lost this connection. So when we follow carefully these steps through Siksastakam, Shiksha, instruction, Astakam, 8 verses of instruction, given by our Bhajan Shiksha Guru, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. What greater wealth could we ask for? I think we're very fortunate to have this time, have such a long time, 2 weeks practically, to really discuss all of these truths, to really examine them, turn them over, look at them from all different angles of vision. So tonight we'll go again through Bhajan Rahasya and discuss much more inner aspects of these truths, of anubhavas. How is this greed creating my progress towards the conclusion of the sweetest relationship with Radha and Krishna? It just becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. It's the nature of our spiritual practice. And Nam is empowering everything. Nam was bestowed upon us by the mercy of Sri Guru. So Guru and Nam is our total shelter. Jai Srila Gurudev.
Each verse, Srila Bhaktivedanta wrote songs.
Yes. So many things, Didi, that I'm not speaking. You know, we're covering so much ground. But she's commenting that in each verse is written in the Siksastakam, a beautiful song by Srila Bhaktivedanta in his Genius from the Gita Valley. And for example, in this verse, I'll read this song. You can read the others yourself. He's saying, he's fluffing out the verse in his song. As a result of my offenses, my heart has become as hard as a thunderbolt. Consequently, it does not melt even slightly when I chant your holy name. This is the mood coming from Trinada Pisanishena. It's coming from Dudaivam Idrisham. It's coming from the second verse also. This humility is empowering everything. O Prabhu, now I am feeling very despondent, being aggrieved with distress. I am calling your name again and again. I've become desperate. We should be desperate. I was describing yesterday, it seems like we're gifted in a Western body of this desperation. We have to be desperate. In an Indian body, you might not be so desperate because it's perhaps a more conducive environment. But in a Western body, it's very easy to be desperate because it's so hellish. Sometimes in the Western world, we become desperate for these truths. You are very merciful. Kindly give me a single drop of bhav and save my agitated life. So this is what he was asking previously. And now he's saying in this verse, when will that auspicious day arrive when upon chanting your holy name a stream of tears will flow from my eyes? When will my throat become choked up, causing my words to become garbled? When will the hairs of my body stand erect due to ecstasy? When will I become soaked with perspiration? When will all the limbs of my body begin to tremble? O Prabhu, when will my body become stunned, becoming overwhelmed with bhav? When will my color fade? And when at last will I lose all consciousness? Regaining my consciousness once again, I will maintain this life simply by taking shelter of your holy name, crying incessantly. This Bhakti Vinod, who is devoid of all intelligence, says, will there ever be such a day for this unfortunate soul? Longing, lasamai, longing, will there be a day for me? Will this day come? When will this day come? That greed is infusing my whole practice. We should check our own greed, see if we have to go back to the Western world, etc. Will that greed diminish? One sure way that the greed will not diminish is if we regularly, seriously take shelter of Nam. This is what it's saying here. He's saying, when will I take full shelter of your holy name? We have Guru's mercy. Gurudev loves us so much. He is empowering us. Now we have to do our part of the deal. It's like Gurudev throws the rope into the well. That's his job. What is our job? To take hold of the rope, to grab it. Otherwise, how can we pull out? That taking hold of the rope is like chanting Hare Krishna. Yes, I am making my effort. Every day I'm endeavoring to actually connect more with Nam, particularly in the West. Our dear Kusumpita, he's leaving today, this land of Bharatvash. And now the anubhavas are coming. But still he has to go back to that other world. It's not another world if we keep chanting. It remains Braj. It remains Braj entirely if we remain enthusiastic, if we have this quality of enthusiasm, which is always empowered by the name. I gave the example the other day of petrol in the car. When you put petrol in the car, you can go somewhere. The petrol is like the holy name. You're empowering this body, this vehicle. Gurudev will show where to drive it. But the holy name is the power that's taking us along the road. If you don't put the petrol in the car, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to sit in Bologna and just look at the fields all around you. Nothing will happen. You have to put the petrol there to move the power of the holy name. So be encouraged, be enthusiastic about our progress. We have all hope that our future is so glorious. No doubt. Don't ever be hopeless. Jai, Shri Gurudev Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Bol. Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Gaura he, Gaura he, Gaura he, Gaura he. Oh Jaya Radha, Gopinath Radha, Gopinath Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Ji ki jai, Shri Vrishabhana Nandini Radharani Brajeshwari ki jai, Shri Sachinandana Gaurahari ki jai, Shri Siksastakam ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Gopinath Bhavan ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavayavacha, Patitanam Pavani